That's why I don't be going to the puffy parties.
They don't want me to throw the parties no more. You're gonna hear about my parties, they're gonna be shutting them down, they're gonna probably be arresting me.
He's not gonna outdo me.
You and Puff haven't liked each other business-wise for a long time.
Well, that's why. So I explained why I didn't hang out with him, right? Because it's fluffy stuff going on.
Back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes. We used to actually wrestle off of the Frosted Flakes.
What the f did Puff just say?
Later you gonna find out a little shit that I be saying be real.
You asked him to take him shopping?
Yeah, I thought he needed some clothes. What? I'm a nice guy. I can't see that he loves me. But see, you really, hold on, you really think that's hate? You really, when you really break it down, you've been out here a long time. You know he loves me.
I don't think he like you.
You know he loves me.
I don't think he
Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, in the 1980s, Diddy was dreaming of deals, dancing through dorms and praying for a break that would stick. And by the 1990s, he was building Bad Boy, bagging Billboard bids, birthing Biggie's Bliss, puffing Power, pushing platinum, and polishing pop hits. But by the 2000s, a new superstar hits the mix. 50 Cent was plotting payback, packing pressure to every rival on the list, flipping bullets to business from Get Rich to his movie flicks. Come the 2010s, and the two behemoths were battling over bottles, baby mamas, billboards, and brand name blitz. Now it's 2025 and Fifth's the foulest foe alive, scheming, streaming, screaming headlines while he's slicing Diddy's drive, conniving to revive his rise by twisting every thread of Diddy's decline. A primetime crime rhyme rival whose spite spirals in prime, so let's unpack the demise, but first, like and subscribe.
I study Diddy for a living.
Spicy.
September 2024. The unthinkable happens. Sean Diddy Combs, a man who had been running the music industry for decades, is now running into federal agents in the lobby of a New York hotel room he was staying at. And instead of running, he accepted defeat and was arrested on charges accusing him of running an S-trafficking ring. For the first time in Diddy's career, not only did the untouchable mogul now look vulnerable and potentially finished, but what's even stranger is the vast silence across the music industry from all of Diddy's peers. Aside from the Game, who recently got a little too drunk on his birthday and yelled out "Free Diddy."
Hey, since nobody else ain't gonna say it, hey, free Diddy. Some baby oil and some PP, free or not? Huh?
We saw virtually no major rapper jump out the gate and defend Diddy in a public forum, which is just interesting to think about because at the height of his career, he had everybody at his famous parties. I mean, this was the guy who built empires, partied with presidents, and turned music into money. Most notably at a time when hip-hop wasn't nearly as commercialized as it is today. But amidst all the dominance Diddy possessed within the industry, one man had been warning us about Diddy for years, calling out his shady side long before the headlines ever hit, and that was none other than Curtis 50 Cent Jackson.
You and Puff haven't liked each other business-wise for a long time.
Well, that's why. So I explained why I didn't hang out with him, right? Because it's fluffy stuff going on. They hug you from the front and the back at the same time.
It's not your thing.
It's not my thing, bro.
The rivalry between 50 Cent and Diddy is quite odd, because if you rewind the clock, they weren't always enemies. At one point, 50 Cent was even in talks to sign with Diddy's Bad Boy label. And over the decades, they've smiled in the same rooms, worked in the same events, but something always kind of felt off, and that became no more apparent than when Diddy finally saw himself facing real charges. Because, like I said before, the industry might have stayed silent, his closest friends in the hip-hop space may have not said a word to defend or condemn him. But one person who was more vocal than ever before was 50 Cent.
When you continuously call Puff gay, does that affect your relationships in Hollywood?
I don't call him gay. I said fluffy.
That's why I don't be going to the puffy parties. Hug you from the front and the back at the same time.
For a while, the rest of the world most definitely followed. Right after Diddy got arrested, he became the internet's poster boy for freakiness. 50 Cent spearheading the memes that were flooding the internet left and right, with the expression "No Diddy" even becoming a global term. But as the months passed and the trial unfolded, things got kinda complicated. The media slowly started painting Cassie, who was once seen purely as a victim, as more of a willing participant in some of the chaos.
The worst decision she ever made was not taking that $30 million and getting Ghost. Because the more stories that come out against Cassie, it becomes perfectly clear that Cassie is a predator.
And ultimately, public opinion started shifting. At the start of his arrest, he was being labeled a monster. By the time it got to trial, he was just a freaky guy. He went from being seen as dangerous to just unhinged. And as insane as I think it is, by the end of his trial, people were excited about the idea that he might be seen a free man in the coming weeks.
Count 1, not guilty. Count 2, not guilty. I told you, he got that one, but he be fine. He be out in a couple months. He be straight. Not guilty. He beat the case. He might even come home today. Time served, man. All you Cassie Jane Doe, it's a wrap for y'all. I wish this judge could have dismissed all them civil suits too. Give this back his baby oil and let him go have his Astro Glide. Let that man go back to the pre-freak off his crazy chat. I might have to put it on RSVP. My boy really beat the case.
Diddy himself even planned a speaking event in Miami for October 2025, thinking that he would walk away with time served. And of course we know he didn't. The judge gave him 4 years, and just like that, the comeback Diddy imagined had turned into another headline. And with that, one man made it his mission to make sure the people would forever remember the monster that Diddy truly is. The biggest hater, the worst op alive, the same man who had been warning us from the start.
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as the hip-hop is fine with his behaviors.
Now, about 2 weeks after this documentary, all of Diddy's defenders and 50 Cent's greatest foes have been coming out of the woodwork attacking him. And when you look at 50 Cent's Instagram page right now, you're getting bombarded with him clapping back at his collection of ops with troll posts hitting you left and right. And it reminds me a lot of when you're on certain websites and you start getting a million sketchy ads popping up. They basically take control of your whole computer screen. You can't close them. Most of them are scams. This has happened to me way too often, and that's when I realized I need a safer and much smoother internet browsing experience. And that's where today's video partner NordVPN comes in to save the day. NordVPN all across the board is going to make your internet browsing experience the safest it could possibly be. And using my special link, nordvpn.com/rapaholics, you could get an exclusive deal with 4 bonus months added to your plan, plus a 30-day money-back guarantee. NordVPN has helped me in so many different ways. Firstly, the issue I was telling you guys about before, Nord had it completely covered, blocking off any sketchy pop-up ads from my internet browser. As a YouTuber, I have to download a lot of stuff online. They scan every single file before it hits my computer to make sure there's no malware on it. They also keep track and manage all my different passwords. As a YouTuber, obviously I need to keep that stuff very safe, and Nord alerts me any single time my passwords or personal data have ever shown up online. And beyond just safety, how many of you guys have been traveling or kicking it at home trying to watch your favorite show, but somehow it's not available in your region? Well, the best part is NordVPN lets you change your virtual location in seconds. Same phone, same laptop, but online, you're anywhere you want. One click protects up to 10 devices, even when you're on public Wi-Fi. So again, head over to nordvpn.com/rapaholics to grab the exclusive deal with 4 bonus months added to your plan. It's completely risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Links in the description and the pinned comment. Stay scam-free and make your internet browsing experience as safe and as chill as possible with NordVPN. And maybe there's a deeper reason why 50's been warning us. Maybe the Jane Doe in the Diddy trial was 50 Cent's baby mama. Maybe Diddy screwed 50 over in too many business deals to count. Well, regardless of the reason, 50's going all out, exposing every horrifying thing that Diddy did. And because of that, his life might be in danger. Now, with 50 Cent releasing this documentary, he destroyed any chances of Diddy having positive sentiment within the public eye once he gets released, reminding us that Diddy wasn't just a horrible person within his relationships, but also did some horrible things throughout his entire career in the industry. But with this expose came a price. 50 Cent had got on Instagram to say that he was being sent death threats at Live nightclub, possibly from Diddy.
Yo, what kind of gay shit is this, Diddy? Send me flowers at Club 11? Why all the foreplay? Let's get busy. That's what he's basically saying. You know I'm stupid.
There have been multiple negative news articles mysteriously popping up, conveniently right around the time that 50 Cent releases this documentary. And of course, you also have Ja Rule, 50 Cent's mortal enemy. He's re-emerging from the Fire Festival and resurfacing some old allegations of abuse that 50 was faced with, saying that he's gonna do a documentary of his own on Curtis Jackson.
What he say fuck me for?
And ultimately, a big chunk of social media is questioning whether 50 Cent produced this documentary with the intention strictly of telling the story of Diddy and reminding the world the horrors he committed, or was it for a more selfish reason? Was this all to get revenge on a longtime enemy? Well, it could be a mixture of both. And by the end of this video, you'll get to understand exactly why 50 Cent went from almost signing to Puff Daddy to signing contracts with Netflix to destroy Puff Daddy's legacy. And you'll get a true behind the scenes look on whether Diddy truly was a monster or just a mogul masked behind the mayhem. 69 in Harlem, New York City. Pretty fitting year for Diddy to be born. His father, Melvin Combs, was an associate of convicted drug dealer Frank Lucas and was shot and killed in his car in Central Park when Diddy was just 2 years old. But according to Diddy's childhood friend, Tim Patterson, in this new 50 Cent documentary, the presence of Diddy's father, Melvin, was always felt throughout their household. The environment, the money, he made a lot of things possible for Diddy and his mother, Janice. Janice herself worked several jobs to raise Diddy and support him. In the documentary, it's revealed that for years, she hid the fact from Diddy that she actually worked as a bottle girl at an after-hours spot, serving drinks to gentlemen in the late hours of the night.
My mom's is single. Mom do know how to have a good time. She ain't sitting in the house playing. Outside moving and shaking, baby. She come with me to strip club. I don't care. Real. I love you. Love you too.
Again, a lot of these stories are told through the perspective of Tim Patterson, whose family lived in the top floor of the home that Diddy grew up in. So he was the closest thing to a brother that Diddy had. It speaks volumes to know that a guy who was that close to Diddy so early on in life is now opening up this much on a public expose like this documentary was. But he gives some very interesting insight into Diddy's early years, which I think reflect the person he developed into, and most notably how he handles relationships and leverages power in every situation imaginable. See, Janice, Diddy's mom, was making him into a superstar from day one, dressing him up in fur coats and hats, having a stage in their living room, hosting massive parties with hustlers, NBA players, and having Diddy dance in the middle of the night at these parties. In the documentary, they say they believe this was Janice's way of overcompensating for the lack of Diddy's father's presence in the household by dressing Diddy in everything that Harlem embodied at the time. Even the movies they'd watch, Superfly, The Mac, the roles in those movies were hustler roles. She was molding Diddy at an early age to possess this larger-than-life spirit. And it didn't take Diddy too long to fully embody this identity. Initially, he was described as a goofy kid who sometimes got picked on and didn't necessarily know how to defend himself. But he was his mother's only son. She dressed him and raised him like he was larger than life. She wasn't gonna raise a princess. And as intense as the luxury and partying that surrounded Diddy at an early age was, so was the violence. Again, Diddy's childhood friend, Tim Patterson, said in the documentary that the beatings he witnessed Diddy received were so brutal they made him scared. And this molded Diddy into a man that refused to lose. If he was in a fight, he was biting your ear, cutting your neck, doing whatever it is he had to do to gain victory. And this applied to every aspect in his life. When you're shaped and raised by pain, you deflect that pain onto the people around you.
Savage! I'm a savage! Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get!
Now, growing up without a father enabled Diddy to get away with quite a bit, as no one was necessarily there to enforce right from wrong. But Diddy's early years weren't necessarily filled with danger or gang activity. Diddy attended a private Catholic all-boys high school called Mount St. Michael Academy in Mount Vernon, New York. This is where he would apparently adopt the nickname Puffy due to the huffing and puffing that he would do when he got angry. Now, from an early age, Diddy knew that he wanted to be working in the music industry. His career started with an internship at WBLS radio station, and from there, he leveraged that experience to try and get an unpaid internship at one of the hottest record labels in the world at the time, Uptown Records. Now, growing up in Mount Vernon, there was only one artist to make it out of Mount Vernon onto a global level, and that was none other than Heavy D. Diddy knew that Heavy D frequented this pizza shop, so Diddy would visit it constantly in hopes of meeting Heavy D and pitching him on the idea of becoming his manager.
There's one guy that made it out of Mount Vernon. It was Heavy D. He lived in the area. I was like, I gotta meet this guy. I would wait around the pizza shop that he would come to. I would just sit outside the pizza shop. And one day he came in the pizza shop. I said to him, you know, I want to talk to you about being your manager. This is like when I was like 17. And then he like kind of like laughed at me. He was like, you crazy, you know what I'm saying? He bought me a slice of pizza. And I was telling him, you know, I really want to be in the music industry. And, you know, I'm interning now with WBLS. That was the radio station. But I really want to get down with you in Uptown. And then I said, you know, maybe you could get me a meeting with Andre Harrell. He said, let me see what I could do.
Now, ultimately, as much as Diddy might have admired Heavy D for what he accomplished in music, the real guy that he wanted to get in touch with through Heavy D was Andre Harrell. Andre was the founder of Uptown Records. He was bringing hip-hop to Wall Street. He was the one with the power. He was the one Diddy needed to emulate. And he did whatever he needed to make that happen. With the Heavy D pizza shop encounters not doing enough to push Diddy's career forward, he ended up taking things a step further by actually showing up to Heavy D's house in an attempt to get a meeting from Heavy D with Andre Harrell. And sure enough, after almost a year of persistence, Diddy got what he wanted.
It took like maybe 8 months. I went from stalking him at the pizza shop to like, there was like a fork in the road to like where like he would have to veer off to the left to go to his house, but then it was like in a kind of a main street. So I used to just walk up and down that block to hope to see his car to be like, hey, what's up? Like I was on the block. And he drove past me like 3 times. I never caught him there, but I got enough heart one day. I said, I'm just gonna walk up to his house. Like I need this, how bad I need this. I would walk by his house. One day he was outside, made the call, and he set up a meeting for me to meet with you.
Now, before Diddy takes the internship at Uptown Records, he also enrolls at Howard University in Washington, D.C. This is when he starts hosting his own parties. He's traveling from New York to go work at Uptown Records, back to D.C. to go to classes. His internship at Uptown Records is unpaid, so he's looking to make an extra couple bucks by hosting these parties. Through those parties, he starts building connections of his own in the New York music and nightlife scene. Meanwhile, at the Uptown offices, Kim Porter, the girlfriend of Al B. Shore, the star artist off of Uptown Records, she's working as the receptionist at Uptown. And according to people in the documentary, Diddy is at that receptionist desk every day. See, again, a repeated theme in this video will be, when Diddy wants something, he'll fight ruthlessly to take it. Nothing's off limits. But meanwhile, he's looking at Al B. Shore, Andre Harrell, and Heavy D as exactly where he wanted to be. And remember, at this point, he's still just the young, unpaid intern. He was a preppy kid. He got a lot of his cool, a lot of his swag from being around these guys and studying them. And it was that knack for studying other people and taking what he wanted that propelled Diddy up the ranks at Uptown Records. See, 50 Cent will tell you repeatedly throughout this particular video, and if you go watch the documentary, they'll repeat it time and time again. Diddy had no musical talent. His talent was studying what worked and implementing it into his own lane. So what made him so successful at the beginning at Uptown Records was his ability to market and package their artists. He handled everything from the look to the sound to the music videos. And because of the job he's doing, he ends up getting a promotion, moving up to an A&R position at Uptown Records. An A&R is essentially someone who finds and signs artists for the label and then develops them. Now, throughout this time, Andre Harrell is like a mentor to Diddy, like the father he never had. Andre purchases a house, Diddy moves in it before Andre even does. Diddy starts throwing parties in it. This is where we see in the documentary one of Diddy's first alleged victims who came forward with a lawsuit that dates back to events from all the way in 1991. Joy Dickerson Neal, who claims that Diddy had poached her to be an extra in a music video. Later that day, Diddy was throwing a party at Andre Harrell's house. She ends up joining him, and according to her lawsuit from November 2023, it alleged that Diddy had assaulted her, drugged her, and recorded the encounter, and then played the recording at future parties that he threw.
Your parties are the hottest ticket around.
They won't even give me a permit for the parties, man. They don't want me to throw the parties no more. But we ain't gonna stop. We're gonna keep on having fun, bringing people together from all walks of life. You're gonna hear about my parties. They're gonna be shutting them down. They're gonna probably be arresting me, doing all types of crazy things just because we wanna have a good time. Whenever you bring up a different element into people's environment, things that broaden people's horizon, people get intimidated. There's a lot of people out there that feel intimidated by it.
In the new documentary, Joy even shows a handwritten letter written by her mother to Diddy's mother, detailing the horrible actions that Diddy allegedly did to her daughter and the look of trauma that Joy's mother saw in her daughter's eyes. Now, this would be the first of a long line of tragically dark events that would come out of parties hosted by Diddy. The next one, and arguably the darkest one in public history, came later that year in December 1991. The first annual Heavy D and Puff Daddy celebrity basketball game. You might find it kind of strange that Diddy decided to put his name in the title of this event, considering players in the actual basketball game included Boyz II Men, Run DMC, Phife Dawg, Big Daddy Kane, Jodeci, and more. And we're talking 1991. Puff Daddy had barely just graduated from intern to A&R at Uptown Records. We'll touch on that shortly. But I say that to say, he wasn't a celebrity at this time. The star power of his name was not going to draw in people to buy tickets for this event. So while it seems strange that he put his name on the billing, when you look at the grand scope of things, it all makes sense. This event was Diddy's best shot yet at getting his name known on a massive stage. And plus, him handling all the marketing, all the promotion over at Uptown Records, and Heavy D being the flagship artist of the record label, it did make sense that Diddy was the main guy in charge of promoting this event. And that's exactly what he did. Tickets were going for $12, which in today's money is around $28. That's a pretty good price to pay to see all these different celebrities in one room together. So it made sense that tickets were selling like crazy. The gymnasium that hosted the event has capacity to hold 2,730 people. The doors opened at 5 o'clock, and just 30 minutes later, they already had to close them with hundreds of people still waiting outside. Over 5,000 people bought tickets to this event in a gymnasium that can only hold 2,700. So naturally, you have massive lines outside. It's freezing cold, the dead of winter in New York. Dozens of celebrities are inside this gymnasium, and you're holding a ticket for that event in your hand. You're gonna do whatever you could to get into that building. And that's exactly what the hundreds of people outside tried to do. 5:30, the doors close. By 7 p.m., people who had not been let in and were waiting outside broke the glass door, swarmed towards the entrance of the gym, and made their way to a short staircase that would lead to the gym. The problem was, the doors at the bottom of that staircase opened inwards, not outwards towards the gym, meaning that someone inside the gym could have opened those doors to get back into the lobby. But the hundreds of people who were now crowding out in that staircase from the lobby could not push the doors open to get into the gym. So the doors stayed shut as the collection of people waiting in that staircase grew bigger and bigger. Eventually, the crowd grew so big in such a compact, small area that people at the bottom of the staircase started getting crushed and suffocated. 30 injuries and 9 deaths. One of the biggest tragedies to come out of a music-related event in history. According to Diddy's bodyguard at the time, Gene Deal, who was actually at the event, he said this tragedy led Diddy to be placed on suicide watch. While there was ultimately no criminal charges placed on anyone involved in this tragedy, there were several civil lawsuits that both Heavy D and Diddy had to face from the families of the victims. In March of 1998, 7 years later, a judge had settled the cases for $3.8 million. Diddy was forced to pay $750,000, around 20%. Meanwhile, Heavy D, a security firm that was in charge of managing the event, and the New York State were required to pay the rest. A separate judge had found Diddy and Heavy D together both 50% responsible, saying they had proximately caused the injuries and deaths.
People have not forgotten what happened, including the event's promoter, 22-year-old Sean Puffy Combs. He was cited in the New York City Deputy Mayor's report for failing to adequately alert student organizers to the need for strong security and crowd control. Since then, Combs has maintained a low profile in the press, which he feels has wrongly portrayed him.
17 days after the tragedy took place, Deputy Mayor Milton Mullen released a report on his investigation into who was responsible for the injuries and deaths that took place. And he concluded that ultimately, almost all the individuals involved in the event acted improperly, and specifically, the promoter of the event, Sean Diddy Combs, delegated planning of the event to his assistants who had insufficient experience and failed to purchase the necessary insurance. Sadly, it was reports like this, publicity like this, stemming from such a horrific tragedy that actually led Diddy to get his first big look in the limelight. He hosted a press conference with Heavy D about 5 days after the tragedy took place to clear his name and explain to the press that, in his opinion, he was ultimately the easiest target to point a finger at.
I'm famous for like the kid in their minds who threw the tragic City College, and that's kind of hard for me sometimes to live with. I think the media and everybody was trying to figure out why this happened. It was just a big media circus, you know what I'm saying? It was real scary for me. I didn't know like how to defend myself or something. I'd never been put in that position, and I was just trying to do something for my community, you know what I'm saying? Something to give us a place to go like I had been doing. It wasn't the first time I threw events.
Now ultimately, with the spotlight on Diddy for all the wrong reasons, according to people around Diddy at the time, specifically Kirk Burroughs, the co-founder of Bad Boy Records, this whole situation would lead Diddy's mother to question whether or not Diddy made the right decision by leaving school and entering the music industry. And this is where Kirk claims Diddy ends up calling his mother a B, putting his hands on her, and telling her there is no looking back. Now, it's important to note that Diddy's mother did put out a statement in response specifically to these accusations that Kirk Burroughs made, saying, "The allegations stated by Mr. Kirk Burroughs that my son slapped me while we were talking about the tragic City College events in December 1991 are inaccurate and patently false. That was a sad day for all of us. For him to use this tragedy and incorporate fake narratives to further his prior failed and current attempt to gain what was never his, Bad Boy Records, was wrong, outrageous, and beyond offensive." So while everyone's giving their side to this story, one thing remains factual. Diddy most definitely did not quit. The company that funded Uptown Records did in fact want to fire Diddy, specifically over the City College tragedy. However, Andre Harrell made sure that didn't happen. He fought for Diddy, and in a dark, twisted way, around this time, you had the perfect symmetry of a massive boost of publicity stemming from the tragedy, while simultaneously receiving a major opportunity from Andre Harrell. And this is where Diddy took things to the next level. Diddy had asked Andre Harrell if he could be an A&R at Uptown Records, and around the same time, Andre's approached by a group of male singers, Jodeci, and immediately that becomes Diddy's first responsibility as A&R of Uptown Records. Make Jodeci superstars.
Puffy was an intern at Uptown Records. Puffy ran around, did a lot of things, learned a lot of stuff. I'm Jodeci from watching us on stage. He was just an intern. So they cut all the what Puffy do with y'all. He was there being a cheerleader and watching how we was doing on stage, how he was able to go on stage and entertain people watching us.
Now remember, throughout the documentary, there's this repeated theme that Diddy didn't have any real talent, aside from, as they put it, sponging or taking from the community. And he leveraged this strategy in every endeavor. He was able to leverage connections throughout different communities and use those connections to throw events and host parties, with his face being the face of the event. And while these parties were massive, they would only boost Puffy's popularity. He was able to understand fashion and culture within the community that he grew up in and integrated that into the designs and sounds of the artists that he developed. He wasn't musically gifted per se. He was great at understanding culture and integrating it into every endeavor he pursued. And this helped him understand a hit party, a hit look, and most importantly at this point, a hit record. There was a club in Diddy's hometown called The Rooftop where the DJ, Brucey B, would mix R&B acapellas over hard-hitting hip-hop beats. And if you know the era of music that Diddy ushered in, you would know this was the exact blueprint that he used. It was the winning formula used to make Jodeci superstars, and his next runner-up was Mary J. Blige, and she was even bigger.
I had a Volkswagen Rabbit. I used to pick her up from Slow Bombs up in Yonkers. And I always remember her like getting in my car, freezing outside the way somebody gets in your car cold. And my heater wasn't working. And we trying to make sure that we could get to the studio. We have enough gas money.
Nobody wanted to take a chance on me. Nobody wanted to help me. It wasn't like I was pressed or begging anyone for help, but Puffy volunteered. He wanted to help me.
Quickly, it was no longer the artists that were the priority at Uptown Records. It was Diddy himself. The artists were looked at as disposable. The value was placed on Diddy because he was able to make them and break them at the snap of a finger. Everything again, from the fashion to the sound to the music videos to the overall look. He studied what worked and implemented it into every one of his artists. So much so to the point where you had other record labels calling Uptown looking for Diddy to come help develop and break their artists. Remember, the formula he's using is R&B acapellas over hardcore hip-hop beats. But the game would change for Diddy when he simply decided to flip that. Smoother R&B production with hardcore hip-hop acapellas. And that would first be executed on none other than the notorious B.I.G.
He took me out of a dangerous game, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I was selling drugs real hard, you know? When I got the record deal, all I got cut short. I look at him like, I say, Jesus.
And the next question is, watch out for the thunder out this month. Love you.
I don't think people realize like how young we were. Two young men that really had a chemistry, really got along, and were just really enjoying.
Now what's interesting to note is that before Bad Boy, Biggie was actually an Uptown artist. Puffy was just responsible for A&Ring and developing him. And it took a long while to actually break Biggie into the mainstream. He joined Uptown in around 1992. Around this same time again, Diddy is the young guy who understands culture. And because of his knack for being able to take from what he sees around him, he starts becoming a little bit bigger than Uptown. The student was becoming the master, you could say. The industry was calling for Diddy, no longer Andre Harrell, and you could only imagine what that was doing to Diddy's ego.
Recently, Combs was promoted to Vice President of Artist Development at Uptown Records, started his own record label, and is the creator and executive producer behind some of R&B's top acts.
Father MC, Puffy, responsible for that. Mary J. Blige, holy Puffy.
So much so to the point where the very man who defended Diddy against that tragedy that occurred a year before at that gymnasium, refusing to fire Diddy after such a horrible incident had occurred, had now been so fed up with Diddy's behavior to the point where he had to can him. Diddy and Andre Harrell are clashing. It gets to the point where Diddy needs to leave, needs to be fired. But because of the potential that Andre Harrell saw in Diddy and the history that they had, he allows Diddy to actually take Biggie as an artist with him. The problem was they now had no label to actually promote and roll out the album. They needed a budget. Diddy was now on his own. So him and his childhood friend, Kirk Burroughs, go shopping Biggie Smalls to all the major record labels. And they struck gold when they played Gimme the Loot for Clive Davis. If you guys don't know who Clive Davis is, he's a rock and roll Hall of Fame record executive responsible for breaking artists like Pink Floyd, Whitney Houston, Aerosmith, Bruce Springsteen, and a whole lot more. He loved what he heard off the rip with Gimme the Loot and immediately partnered up with Diddy on a venture that would change Diddy's life and the game forever. Bad Boy Records was now officially under Arista Records, which Clive Davis was running. Arista Records gives Bad Boy Entertainment $10 million to make this Biggie album happen. 25% of that went to Kirk Burroughs, while Kirk claims the other 75% was actually put under a holding company in Diddy's mother's name so that Diddy could allegedly avoid having to spend that money on lawsuit settlements or having to pay the families of the victims from that tragic celebrity basketball event that Diddy promoted. And Kirk says once he saw this was the moment he realized that that old preppy kid from that all-boys private high school was gone. That $10 million went straight to Diddy's head, and he became a studio gangster. At the time, they're studying what's working within the realm of hardcore hip-hop. And that would, of course, be what was going on over on the West Coast. Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, The Chronic, and of course, Tupac Shakur. over at Bad Boy, they allegedly put Tupac's song I Get Around under a microscope, studying every ounce of it to replicate it for the stars off of Bad Boy. And it wasn't just Biggie, you had Craig Mack too. We'll get to him shortly in this video. But speaking of video, I just find it hilarious that Diddy was obsessed with the music video of Tupac's I Get Around. I mean, it's just a bunch of dudes that are shirtless running around with different ladies. Just a funny music video to, you know, put under a microscope. And I mean, if you compare it side by side to Biggie's music video for Juicy, you could see there was a lot of inspiration taken. Now again, it took a little while to actually break Biggie. They started with Party and BS as the first single. That didn't do what they wanted it to. But once they dropped Big Papa, it was over. Biggie was out of here. And aside from Bad Boy studying Tupac's every move, Biggie actually formed a real friendship with Tupac at the beginning. He sent his album Ready to Die to Tupac before it came out. Tupac loved it and supported Biggie heavily early on, going to Biggie's album release party in New York, bringing Biggie and Diddy out to LA to perform at Glam Slam. And notice in this clip how Diddy is conveniently rocking the bald haircut, trying to replicate the look of you-know-who.
What you want? What you want? Bathroom passes, cut classes, squeezing out. And
Biggie even opened up on tour for Tupac. It was clear they were both next up. Now remember again, Diddy has a strong habit for taking what he wants. And what he wants right now is Tupac. Pac is a movie star, he's a rapper, everyone loves him. Ultimately, Diddy wants to pursue some sort of business endeavor with Pac. But Pac wasn't interested, he just wanted to work with Biggie. And this definitely created some tension. Diddy was ultimately threatened by Tupac. I mean, what do you think he had that haircut for earlier in that clip? Now, things would take a turn for the worst. In November of 1994, when Tupac makes his way to Quad Studios in Manhattan to record, he was going to do a verse for an artist by the name of Little Sean. But Big Sean, Sean Combs, and Biggie were also at this studio at the same time. When Tupac makes it to the lobby of this recording studio, he's robbed and shot 5 times. Now, Pac would later get arrested, and while he was in jail, Biggie released a song called Who Shot Ya, recorded months before the shooting actually took place. But Pac's still feeling like it was a reference to the shooting that occurred at Quad Studios. So he would do interviews saying that Diddy and Biggie knew about and were potentially behind this deadly attack.
Do you think Puffy was involved in the shooting?
Only they can answer that question. Right. I have my own opinion, but I wouldn't slander their name like they did mine. Right. I wouldn't say things that I knew, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I believe so. I do believe so. I have proved things that I can say that will back up my claim, but this is not for the world to know about. It's between me and him, and only he knows.
Now, it's important to note that at the time, Tupac was on trial for assault, and a journalist, a great one by the name of Toure, you guys probably know him, he actually says he was covering that entire trial and really had a boots on the ground type of look at what was going on within these different camps at the time. And he emphasizes that although 50's documentary tries to paint it like Diddy was behind the attack, it was actually Jimmy Henchman who had been managing Little Sean at the time, the guy who Tupac actually went to the studio to record with. It was Jimmy Henchman who was responsible for the attack. Diddy allegedly had nothing to do with it.
50 got y'all thinking that Puff is the man behind Pac getting at the Quad Studios thing? No. I will never defend Puff, but I will defend the truth. I see a lot of y'all saying, well, Puff was at Quad when Pac got blanked, so nothing. I was covering Pac's trial. I was seeing him every single day through that situation when that Quad situation happened. Follow me now. Jimmy Henchman, who is currently incarcerated, is a criminal who is operating in the music business. When the Quad Studios thing happened, Jimmy Henchman was managing Little Sean. Little Sean is a rapper who was on Uptown. Jimmy Henchman called Pac repeatedly and said, come to the studio tonight and do a song with Little Sean, I'll give you $7,000. And Pac needed the money because the shows were not happening, because he's on trial for rape, he's paying the lawyers all this money. Yes, Big and Puff were there because it's a studio. There's lots of people recording. As Pac entered the building to go see Little Sean, 3 men jumped out and with hammers and said, everybody get on the ground, because Pac was with other people. Pac refused. The other people got on the ground, but Pac, badass, refused to get on the ground. So they put 5 bullets in him. The man who pulled the trigger was a street dude named Dexter Isaac. He has admitted doing this. He was hired by Jimmy Henchman, who has admitted doing this. Henchman was managing Little Sean and specifically told Pac to go to the studio so that this would happen. And Pac knew this. On Against All Odds, he told you what it was. Promise to pay back. Jimmy Henchman in due time.
And of course, Diddy would deny shooting Tupac as well. But now to take a quick detour from the Tupac situation, remember how I said it wasn't just Biggie signed to Bad Boy. The first artist to actually break out off the label was Craig Mack. He had the massive song Flavor in Your Ear. Now, at the time, Bad Boy is making a killing. Whether it's Craig Mack, whether it's Faith Evans, whether it's Biggie, Diddy has some of the biggest artists in music right under his belt. But what's crazy is, at least according to the documentary, most of them are living dead broke. Craig Mack's ex-wife was in the documentary and she said they had such a little amount of money that they had to ask her parents just to support their basic bills. And Craig Mack actually went to Diddy directly and said he had no money, asked Diddy, his boss, for a loan, and Diddy gave him a measly $100. Imagine winning Grammys and having no money. And then you're doing interviews with your boss, who's filthy rich, and he's telling the interviewer that you're already about to release your second album, but you didn't even know you had a second album that existed.
I'm sure you got much things in store for my man.
Yeah, definitely. We got a new album we're working on him to drop in January. Besides that, we about to just drop our R&B stuff.
The Puff Daddy album.
Yeah, definitely. We got a new album we're working on him to drop in January. Besides that, we about to just drop our R&B stuff.
The Puff Daddy album.
I mean, you could see the disappointment in Craig Mack's eye right there, right? Now, you might be wondering, how did Diddy actually get away with not paying his artists? Well, don't forget, at this point, he's almost a decade into the music industry, right? Being mentored by a giant in Andre Harrell, being a part of many situations he had to weave his way out of, he's learned a couple tricks and tips within the industry that he can use to his advantage. For example, Diddy was never a guy to play behind the scenes, but maybe that was for a reason. See, if Diddy was in your music video, if he was featured on your song, if he's the A&R on your project, if he owns the studio that you're recording in, he pays himself a fee for all of those things. Even though you're his artist, you as an artist are forced to listen to him. But every piece of advice came with a price. Again, Diddy knew how to take. He took what was hot, he used his name to make it hotter, and he stood right next to it, and then paid himself a fee for standing right next to it. It was a crazy cycle of finesse, and it worked, but it left all his artists without much. And that's why Tupac was such a threat, because he wasn't trying to be in business with Diddy, but instead, he was just trying to be a friend to Biggie, someone who Diddy wanted full control over. Speaking of full control, remember Kirk Burroughs, who controlled 25% of Bad Boy? Well, in the documentary, he says that one day, Puff called him into his office, he had a baseball bat in his hand, and said, "You're going to cough up your 25% and put it under my name." He convinced Kirk that this would be temporarily, that he would get his full ownership back. I'm not sure how that would work, but basically Kirk said the only reason why he actually handed over his 25% is because it wasn't like Puff was firing him, and he wanted to continue this Bad Boy operation. So he figured this was the only way to do so, to give up all his power and control. So at this point, Diddy had everything. And even though Pac was in jail, there would be a bigger threat: Suge Knight. See, Bad Boy had been broiling for a couple years now, but their impact was nothing compared to the noise being made over on the West Coast. And once Suge Knight bailed Tupac out of jail, signed him to death row, and now they had Snoop, Dre, and Pac all on the same label, it was over. Not only that, remember there was a disgruntled Craig Mack who wasn't getting properly compensated from Diddy. Well, rumors were circulating that Suge Knight was actually trying to sign him. And at the same time, there was a major difference between Suge and Diddy. Yeah, they were both successful executives of hip-hop labels, but the key separating factor was that Suge didn't care to be a superstar or in the limelight at all.
Any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the video, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
This was a direct, jarring jab at every inch of Diddy's existence. Remember, this is a man who thrived off of taking and observing what he should stand next to and taking from that, right? Suge Knight calling that out directly by saying that no artist should have to compromise their image or their pockets by this spotlight-hungry guy hogging the limelight and the cash flow from them. The same way that for years now, Bad Boy had been putting Death Row under a microscope, trying to study how to emulate them, copy their formula and implement it onto Bad Boy's artists, Suge Knight had just put Diddy under a much more ruthless microscope, one that would live with Diddy forever. And Death Row was trying to come take Bad Boy's lunch too. At this point, tensions are higher than ever. Tupac teases the start of an East Coast division of Death Row Records.
What can we expect from it? You believe in God? Certainly.
Believe in Death Row East. Believe in that, for real. Ain't no other record company out there that sold as many records as we did. We outsold Bad Boy, LaFace, every black record label out there, we outsold them in 1 year. And I'm a convict and my homeboy just got off a murder case. So that tell you that it's pure talent.
And at this point, there's no looking back. Also, just to give you guys an update on Kirk Burroughs, remember the guy who had 25% share of Bad Boy? The co-founder, the president of the label, who Diddy threatened with a baseball bat? Yeah, well, by 2003, he filed a lawsuit against Diddy, saying he was threatened and coerced into signing away his ownership, and that Diddy threatened him with a baseball bat and a gun and unlawfully pushed him out. It was dismissed or settled confidentially. I'm assuming it was probably dismissed because now you have it. 20 years later, Kirk is in this documentary revealing all this old 30-plus-year-old information about Diddy and his mother. Now, we're not going to dive deep into every business associate, every artist that Diddy ever worked with, but you will see as we skim through the evolution of Bad Boy into 50 Cent, don't worry, we're getting to him shortly, every major player, especially the ones that start putting real money into Diddy's pockets, they all get done in the same way. They all fall victim to the one tactic Diddy knows how to implement best, and that is to take. Now, of course, over the next few years, two legendary artists were taken from the world far too soon. First, it was Diddy in Las Vegas in 1996. Then it was Biggie the next year in LA. And you'll see over the next few decades, as 50 Cent emerges into the spotlight, he makes multiple allusions, not just in this documentary, but all throughout the 2000s and 2010s, he alludes to the fact that Diddy may have had a role in both of these unalivings. Of course, Diddy was never charged with anything, and both murders went unsolved for decades. That was until September of 2023. Almost 20 years after Tupac's life was taken at just the young age of 25 years old, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis was arrested and charged in Nevada with murder with a gang enhancement. Essentially, police have described him as the shot caller, meaning the person who orchestrated the plan, even if he wasn't the one who pulled the trigger. The shooting is often described as retaliation for the fight that Tupac got into at the MGM Grand Hotel with Orlando Anderson, who's Keefe D's nephew. Now, a couple months after Keefe D was arrested, in July of 2024, a court filing about Keefe D's bail included a discussion that he had in 2009 with police, where Keefe D repeatedly talked about Diddy and suggested that Diddy had hostility towards Tupac and Suge. The same reporting says that there was a 2008 interview which recorded Keefe D alleging that Diddy said he, quote-unquote, needed to get rid of Suge Knight and Tupac and offered $1 million to, quote-unquote, handle the problem. And of course, in 50 Cent's documentary about Diddy as well, Kirk Burroughs says that looking back on everything he knows, he believes Diddy definitely does have involvement in the death of Tupac and even ushered Biggie to his own demise.
And tell everybody what BIG stands for.
Business instead of games.
And the Soul Train Music Award goes to... What's up, Cali? You're making me high, Tony Braxton.
March 9th, 1997. Diddy, Biggie, and the Bad Boy entourage are leaving an after party for the Soul Train Awards. They've spent almost a week in LA. Tensions are high. another vehicle is following the two cars that Puffy and Biggie are in. And as they pull up to a red light, the vehicle catches up to the car that Biggie's in, and an unknown shooter fires multiple shots.
My car was in front, Biggie was in the middle, and then another security vehicle was behind, which had the off-duty officers in. And we left out of the driveway of the parking lot, and we made a right. And as we made the right, we were just driving, and the vehicles were one behind each other. And I was looking straight ahead, basically, and I just heard shots ring out. And then I heard somebody say Biggie's car had got at. And so, like, while my car was moving, I had just opened the door, and the driver, he stopped, and I had jumped out, and I had ran to the car, and I had immediately did that because I knew his leg was broke, so I know there's no way he could have made it out of the car. And then when I went there, I opened up the door, and he was hunched over, and I was trying to talk to him and trying to move him over, and I was trying to tell somebody to call 911, but I just told one of the drivers of security to just jump in the car, just take me to the nearest hospital, please.
The loss of Biggie Smalls marked a significant shift in Diddy's career. The executive who was all up in the videos, all up in his artist spotlight, now had the chance to get a spotlight of his own. About a month and a half after the world lost Biggie, we get the rise of Puff Daddy's solo career. I'll Be Missing You was a tribute song to Biggie Smalls where his wife sang the hook, an interpolated version of Every Breath You Take by The Police. Meanwhile, Diddy was front and center stage on the verses. And this song was a massive hit. This is actually the 105th biggest song on the Billboard of all time, and the 10th biggest song on the Billboard charts from the entire decade of the 1990s. The success of that song led Diddy to release his debut album pretty quickly after releasing Biggie's final album, Life After Death, as Puffy's first project, No Way Out, came out on July 22nd, 1997. You also had that tribute they did at the BET Awards, where Diddy comes out in a pretty interesting way. Kind of a strange entrance to start off a tribute song to your good friend that you just lost, but there'd be a couple other strange things that happened throughout this time period. And they come from none other than, again, the former co-owner of Bad Boy Records, Kirk Burroughs. Now, keep all this stuff with a grain of salt because he says one thing, but other people who had direct connections to the situation at the time say differently. But all this stuff is just interesting to take in. According to Kirk, Biggie was supposed to have the cover of the Rolling Stones before he passed away. Once he did, they were still going to give him the cover, but Diddy stepped in and said, forget that. He's not here anymore. I am, and I'm about to release my album. I'm going to take that cover instead, essentially stealing it from what he called his best friend. But Toure, who we mentioned earlier in this video, who had direct connections to a lot of higher ups in the journalism space when this was all going down, said he spoke to the editor-in-chief of Rolling Stone at the time of this Diddy cover, and they said that Diddy would never have the power to have decided to cancel or replace a certain cover of Rolling Stones. And apparently he only got the cover because I'll Be Missing You, the song, was blowing up so much that they decided it was the right time. It wasn't very common for rappers to even have a Rolling Stones cover back when this was all going down.
I found another thing that Diddy Doc got totally wrong. Big was never supposed to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. How do I know? I'm part of the Rolling Stone family. This is my story. And this, and this. When Kirk said Puff called Rolling Stone and dictated to them who would be on the cover, I was like, that is not how things have ever gone. So I called my old friend Jody Peckman, who was the photo director at the time that this photo was taken. She art directed this cover. She went back to the man who was the editor-in-chief at that time, and they both remember, no, Biggie was never supposed to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. Puffy did not take it from him. He never had it. At that time, it was really hard to get a rapper on the cover of Rolling Stone. But when I'll Be Missing You blew up, the editor-in-chief of Rolling Stone, Sid Holt, said maybe we can get the boss Jan Wenner to go for Puff on the cover. But they had to create an awesome photograph to get this over the finish line. Puff came into the photo shoot and was willing to take his shirt off. The great photograph plus the monster single made it like, okay, it's time to put Puff on the cover. This was an entirely internal conversation. At no point is Puff able to call Rolling Stone and say, you're gonna put me on the cover.
Now all of this stuff, the animated dancing during the sad heartfelt tribute, the Rolling Stone cover, the near immediate release of a debut album after the passing of Biggie Smalls, on paper or at a surface, all of this could seem well-intentioned. But this final aspect of the Biggie Diddy saga raised the most eyebrows in my opinion. And this is actually Biggie's funeral. See, Diddy wanted this funeral to be larger than life. He wanted the whole city to know about it, to be at it, to be celebrating the legacy of one of the greatest rappers of all time. And it most definitely was extravagant.
Biggie was loved in the neighborhood. His funeral was a massive event. When someone put on Hypnotize, the whole place erupted.
Now, Diddy told his co-founder Kirk Burroughs that he wanted Biggie's funeral to be the biggest funeral New York had ever seen. And he may have accomplished that, but of course that comes with an actual price. And Kirk says when Diddy saw how much this funeral will cost, he allegedly decided to not pay for it out of his own pocket. Instead, he made the funeral expenses recoupable, meaning that he planned to charge them back to Biggie's estate instead of Bad Boy Records covering them outright, effectively making it so that Biggie would pay for his own funeral after his passing. Now, a lot of conflicting different sources here, remember. The person who said this was Kirk Burroughs, the co-founder of Bad Boy, who Diddy allegedly forced to give up his 25%. He's been fighting for what he thinks is owed to him for the last 22 years. And these are the stories he's telling today. Sadly, Biggie's mother, who handled a large portion of his estate, she passed away earlier this year in 2025. She had some comments on Diddy, which we'll touch on shortly, but Wayne Barrow, who had worked with Biggie's mom on managing Biggie's estate as well, had refuted these claims about the funeral, saying that he was the one who officiated the funeral and was planning it alongside Kirk Burroughs, but unlike Kirk, he says it was Diddy and Bad Boy who paid for it. It didn't come out of Biggie's estate. Now, as far as Biggie's mother, she's made a couple different statements about Diddy and his behavior over the years, but I think the most interesting alleged statement comes from her memoir from way back in 2005, in which she allegedly accuses both Diddy and Lil' Kim of using Biggie's name and image to further their respective careers. She's allegedly quoted in the book saying, "I'm glad my son doesn't have to witness that the very people that he thought he could ride or die with wouldn't think twice about using his mother. I'm glad that he's not here to see how they've used his image and his name. I believe Sean loved my son after he was dead. I used to tell Christopher all the time not to trust Sean." Now, almost 20 years later, when the horrific video footage would come out of Diddy abusing Cassie at that hotel, Biggie's mom had also made a statement saying, "I'm praying for Cassie and I'm praying for Diddy's mother. I don't want to believe the things that I've heard, but I've seen the video. I pray that he apologizes to her. I hope that I see Sean one day, and the only thing I want to do is slap the daylights out of him. And you can quote me on that, because I liked him. I didn't want to believe all the awful things. I'm so ashamed and embarrassed." But now we're skipping too far ahead. You might be wondering what happened to the future of Bad Boy after losing their star player. Well, just months before the passing of Biggie, Diddy actually signed his next runner-up, Mase. Mase would start off kind of like Diddy's hype man in late 1996 when Diddy was first forming his solo career, songs like Can't Nobody Hold Me Down, but he would rise up the ranks at Bad Boy pretty quickly, releasing his debut album to tons of commercial success at the tail end of 1997. And if you want perspective on how massive Bad Boy became right before Biggie's death and the success that Diddy had directly after it, put it into perspective like this. March 1997, just 2 weeks after his passing, you get Biggie's Life After Death album. 4 months later in July, you get Diddy's debut album. And 3 months after that, you get Mase's debut album. All of them number ones. And they were literally replacing each other as the number one artist on the Hot 100 that entire year. It started off with Can't Hold Me Down, which was Diddy and Mase. Then it was replaced by Biggie's Hypnotize, which of course had Diddy on the ad-libs. Then about a month later, you had Diddy's I'll Be Missing You, a tribute to Biggie, stay at number one on the charts for almost 3 months until it was replaced by Mo Money, Mo Problems, which was Biggie featuring Diddy and Mase. So it got to the point where Diddy wasn't only profiting insane amounts off of all his artists, he was now positioning himself as an artist that was outselling his own artists. I mean, look at the artist who spent the most amount of weeks at #1 on the Billboard charts that year. Because of how Diddy was conveniently all up in the videos, all up in the features, without any baby oil, he ended up sliding himself into the top slot for artists with the most amount of weeks at #1 that year, outdoing his own artists in Faith Evans, 112, Mase, and Biggie. And it wasn't because he had any specific talents. None of those songs I named you are necessarily memorable mainly for Diddy, but somehow he saw all the success from them. Anyways, Mase sees a lot of success for himself in 1997, but by 1999, just about 2 months before he actually releases his second album, he goes up to Hot 97 and announces that he'll actually be retiring from rap in order to become an ordained minister, basically becoming a pastor. And by 2020, Mase would actually take to Instagram to call out Diddy for the way he handles business and treats his artists. He said, "Your past business practices knowingly have continued to purposely starve your artists and been extremely unfair to the very same artists that helped you obtain that Icon Award at the iconic Bad Boy label. You still got my publishing from 24 years ago, in which you gave me only $20,000. However, people would always ask, what's up with Mase? So I would be forced to still perform to not look crazy when I was getting peanuts, and the robbery would continue. So many great memories in people's lives and music were lost. But again, I rode with you in the face of death without flinching, and you still wouldn't do right."
A lot of times when I be doing interviews outside of Mase, everybody be saying like, so what's going on? And I be like, you know, Mase is out here doing his thing. He's cooking up right now. And just to be clear, he has the freedom to go do whatever, you know, he wants to do, you know what I'm saying? What's that mean, bro? Yeah, I mean, he can, you know, a lot of times he can work. He can work. People have felt like, you know, like our situation, I may have stopped him or whatever. He can do whatever he want to do. You know, he got a slick tongue, though. This is Mase. I got my official papers right here from Puff Daddy. It was love. So I guess we don't have no problems at all. All love, man. I don't even know how to take that. I ain't used to Puff doing good stuff, you know?
Yeah, every once in a while you got to do something good.
Now, when Mase initially retired in 1999, Diddy, of course, needed his next runner-up, his next cash cow. And that would be Shine, another rapper turned pastor. Another artist whose time in the spotlight wouldn't last long, and it would likely be due to Diddy's direct actions. On December 27th, 1999, Diddy, his then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, and his then artist Shine were at Club New York in Times Square when an argument broke out between Diddy and Matthew Scar Allen and his crew. Prosecutors said that Allen's accomplice threw money at Diddy, and then all three men drew guns and shots were fired inside the club, with bullets hitting 3 bystanders. Police ended up arresting both Diddy and Shine that night. Diddy was charged with weapons violations, but he was later acquitted of all charges at trial. Meanwhile, Shine was convicted and ultimately served most of a 10-year prison sentence for assault, gun possession, and reckless endangerment stemming from the shooting. Now, Shine has publicly stated that he believes he was set up to be the fall guy within the incident, basically taking the blame so that Diddy can avoid jail time, even going as far as to say Diddy destroyed his life and pretty much sent him to prison. When Shine got out nearly 10 years later, all Diddy offered him was $50,000, which Shine said, of course, was highly insulting. Now, one of the actual injured women from this shooting, Natanya Rubin, has publicly maintained that she was shot in the face during the shooting, and in more recent interviews, she claims that she believes Diddy was the actual one who shot her, not Shine. And several prosecution witnesses at the time testified that they saw both Diddy and Shine holding guns.
As I turned back to look at them, I watched them bow bow. Both of them fired, and the muzzle flash was like pew, pew. Shine's muzzle flash was a little higher. He was on the side closest to the bar. Puffy's muzzle flash was a little lower, and he was on the side closest to where I was, straight ahead from me. I watched them both fire their guns.
Now, around this same time in 1999, another young artist from New York, Southside Jamaica, Queens to be exact, started taking the rap game by storm. Curtis Jackson, known at the time as Boo Boo. Boo Boo was very active in the streets. He was the boss of his 134 and Guy Brewer block, but he wanted to make it off the block and into the booth. In 1996, he met Jam Master Jay, who helped 50 Cent improve his hook writing game. And by 1999, he signed to Columbia Records in preparation for the release of his breakout album, Power of a Dollar. By this point, he's not going by Boo Boo anymore, he's going by 50 Cent. At the time, there was no buzz for this album. So in order to build anticipation, 50 Cent pulled a genius move. Diss the entire game. Before you had Kendrick with Control, you had 50 Cent with How to Rob, where he vividly depicted how he would rob every major artist within the game. And the irony in that, this being 50 Cent's breakout song, he would essentially kickstart his entire career by dissing Diddy. Yes, the first few bars of this song, 50 Cent raps, "You better recognize I'm straight from the street. These industry guys is starting to look like something to eat. I snatch Lil' Kim. I tell Puff you want to see her again? Dance your butt down to the nearest ATM." Obviously in reference to the fact that Diddy, even back then, was dancing in a very flagrant way. Now, this song puts 50 Cent on the map, and the next year he drops Ghetto Quran, and this song caused a lot of problems for 50 Cent. On that song, he's directly reflecting on real street stuff by calling out people involved in these street activities by their actual names. Specifically, he name drops Kenneth Supreme McGriff, a businessman in the streets who has enforcers killing people on his behalf. People considered this snitching at the time because 50 Cent was living in the same area that these gangsters were living in. So recounting these stories, 50 Cent probably had first-hand access to actually witness some of this stuff. But 50 Cent defended himself by saying these crimes were already documented in newspapers and books. So even though he's name-dropping these guys, they've already been name-dropped in the news. It can't be snitching. Well, someone would disagree, because very shortly after, 50 Cent would be shot 9 times outside of his grandmother's house. He ended up driving himself to the hospital. And similarly to Kanye West with Through the Wire, 50 was initially told by doctors that because a bullet had hit his tooth, he would forever have a slur when he spoke, which would obviously make it very hard to rap. Ultimately, 50 didn't let that stop him, but the record label themselves tried to stop 50. See, after the shooting, 50 ended up getting dropped by Columbia Records, and his Power of the Dollar album ended up leaking in July of 2000. But by 2001, 50 Cent makes a full recovery from the shooting and gets back in the studio, dropping mixtape after mixtape. And around the same time, Diddy, who again, like I said before, is dating Jennifer Lopez, she actually suggests that Diddy have 50 Cent ghostwrite for him. So that's exactly what happens on the track Let's Get It by G-Dep and Diddy in 2001. Now, this is the first of countless hilarious trolls on 50 Cent's end because, again, he's writing this verse for Diddy while essentially getting Diddy to admit to a bunch of crimes. The verse goes, "Ayo, call me Diddy, I run this city. Send the cops, the DA, and the feds to come get me." Remember, these bars are from 2001, and they continue. "Cats want to leave me for dead? You're coming with me." AKA, before Diddy dies, the people around him might. 50 also gets Diddy to admit he uses ghostwriters on this track, rapping, Mike co-wrote it and produced it, Drop 9, Hot 9 exclusive. And he exposes more secrets of Diddy's when he gets him to rap, "Make moves major, hide out in Asia. If your girl keep coming around me, then I'ma blaze her. I'm the bad boy flavor, light blue gators. Not guilty, I'm filthy." Of course, there were literally rumors that Diddy was going to hide out in Asia when all this happened. So that was good foreshadowing on 50's end. And then aside from that, we know how Kim Porter was dating Albie Shore before Diddy ended up sliding in. 50's referencing all of that in this verse. Now, what's interesting is in the next year, 50 puts out his comeback mixtape. And while he was writing for Diddy in 2001, by 2002, he's already back to dissing him. On the song Get Out the Club, off his mixtape Guess Who's Back, 50 Cent raps, "Girl, why don't you take your butt home and quit playing games? They're on that pretty stuff, that high Diddy stuff. They want me to trick, but I ain't P. Diddy." So it's possible that even way back 23 years ago in 2002, 50 Cent knew about the sexual escapades that Diddy was on. Because if you guys didn't know, a trick is a person who spends money on gratifying their sexual impulses or pleasures. That's what he was calling Diddy 23 years ago. Around the same time that Diddy was wrestling a 13-year-old usher for Frosted Flakes.
That's my brother right here from day one. We used to wake up and, pause, but like, check this out. I mean, back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes. You know what I'm saying? Before pause was invented, we used to actually wrestle off of the Frosted Flakes.
Yo, what the f did Puff just say?
The jabs at Diddy would continue all throughout 2002. On the next 50 Cent mixtape, he was on a crazy run at this time. He had a song called Part 2 and Bump Heads, where he said, yeah, that's that stuff I said on that J-Lo stuff. Yeah, hey, Puffy, man, stop making these mother effing I Miss J-Lo records, man. At this time, Diddy and J-Lo had broken up, and 50 had actually worked with J-Lo right after he got shot, so maybe Daphne Joy wasn't the first woman that 50 Cent and Diddy were beefing over. But ultimately, by this point in time, Diddy didn't really care about the light jabs 50 was sending because 50 was on fire and Diddy saw dollar signs. After this crazy mixtape run that 50 was going on, he was getting poached by every record label, and before he made his way to Eminem and Dr. Dre, Diddy had actually tried to sign 50 Cent. But apparently he ultimately chose not to because of 50's war with Kenneth Supreme, who again was the leader and kingpin of one of the biggest crime syndicates in New York, the Supreme Team. And remember that name, the Supreme Team. It'll play an important role later in this story. Now again, ultimately 50 Cent ended up deciding to sign with Dr. Dre. And this is when he started to become a direct threat to Diddy. Remember, if Diddy can't take from you, then he's threatened by you. Remember what happened with Tupac. And Diddy would try to take what he could from 50. 2003 saw them starting off on good terms, with Diddy even presenting an award to 50 at the MTV VMA show.
And the award for best rap video goes to, come on Playboi, 50 Cent.
As you could see, it was all good vibes there, but it was around this time period where their friendship didn't stay friendly for too long. Diddy tried to take it to the next level. The New York music executive Chris Lighty had invited both 50 Cent and Diddy to his wedding. Believe it or not, they were both at the same table. And this is when we get the iconic question from Diddy to 50 Cent, where he asks him, "Can I take you shopping?"
Puff was like, yo, when we gonna get the chance to, to kick it, like we could just hang out. We gotta kick it. This is Puff. Okay. He telling me we gotta kick it, and he's like, yo, why don't we like go shopping or some? I mean, like I pay for it. And I was like, what the fuck, this just sound good. I got the fuck away from him because I was like, this nigga, fucking, this just tell me he take me shopping. That's what a guy says to a girl. Don't make like it's just me, man. Why if you do some like, a little fluffy stuff now going on?
Now, interestingly enough, regardless of 50 Cent being very disturbed, insulted, I'm not even sure what you'd call it, over Diddy asking if he could take him shopping, we of course know that he wouldn't reveal this information until decades later. And in the meantime, him and Diddy actually seemed to be on pretty good terms for a little bit. They were spotted at multiple events together in 2004, even taking several pictures together. But by 2005, things would turn sour once again. Here's where Mase enters back into the picture. Remember how I said Mase put out his successful debut album in 1997? By 1999, just 2 years later, whatever he saw in the industry made him want to retire from rap and actually become a pastor. But by 2004, he actually was planning a comeback. He releases his third album, Welcome Back. And throughout the rollout of this project, Mase is basically acting like a G-Unit artist. They're almost confirming that Mase is pretty much about to sign with G-Unit. I mean, he's touring with them. Him and 50 go do an interview. Mase walks in with the G-Unit chain. He's talking about, shout out Lloyd Banks and Young Buck. They started G-Unit, but I'm here to take it further. It was interesting to see Mase make a 5-year comeback and claim G-Unit this time around more than Bad Boy, even though that comeback album ended up getting released on Bad Boy Records.
It's the murder Mase, baby.
Oh man, and to see with the G pendant is just crazy, dog. It's taken me a minute to get my head around it, dog. The way you just walked in, face, muscle. Like, what?
Cats like, Lloyd Banks, Young Buck, the people that originally pushed G-Unit forward along with 50 Cent, those are the people that deserve a lot of credit.
No.
We just coming on, keeping it going, but they started it.
Now, if you wanted any confirmation that Diddy was probably not happy about one of his biggest artists rolling around with what would soon become his biggest op, you gotta look no further than the sneak disses that were riddled throughout 50 Cent's November 2005 song, Window Shopper. Now, this song was in reference to Diddy for so many reasons, but we would only discover that decades later. 50 would only tell us about Diddy asking to take him shopping in around like 2018. This song came out in 2005. The title of it is Window Shopper. The chorus goes, "You're a window shopper. Mad at me? I think I know why. Mad as F when you see me drive by." That's not enough for you? There's layers to this, alright? Firstly, the intro to this song, 50 says, "The top feels so much better than the bottom." I'm assuming most of you guys know what being a top or being a bottom is. If not, you can look it up.
But you've been getting out for over a decade. I remember when you said the top feels so much better than the bottom.
I've been saying this.
In the song, 50 also references a freak off, rapping, "You know a guy wanna see how Cali girls freak off." Now, that's not enough for you, there's more layers to this, alright? Remember, at this time, 50's trying to poach bad boy artist Mase. He's talking to Diddy directly on this song, referencing the fact that Diddy messed up re-upping Mase's contract. He rapped, "It ain't my fault you done effed up your re-up." And he ends the final verse off rapping, "Oh crap man, the store owner's watching you before something gets stolen." That's not enough for you? Alright, well in the music video of this song, 50 Cent is actually taking Mase shopping. And this is a hilarious troll / subliminal diss on so many different levels, right? I mean, number one, Mase is literally shopping for a new record label, right? And it's 50 Cent that's out taking him shopping. Number two, we didn't know this yet, but this was 2 years after Diddy asked to take 50 Cent shopping. Now 50's got this song talking about window shoppers being mad that they're looking through the glass, trying to shop for something, but can't acquire it, right? Diddy couldn't take 50 shopping. And while he's talking about stealing Diddy's artists, while he's talking about freak-offs after a 5-hour flight from New York, where both Diddy and 50 are from, and then to top it all off, Mase is in the music video where 50 Cent is actually taking him shopping. War was being waged on the diddler way back 20 years ago when this track dropped.
In 50 Cent's video, Window Shopping, what was your role exactly in that?
What was my role?
Took you shopping. They said he scooped you and took you shopping in the video. That's what they told me. I didn't see the video. I don't know. I just was asking.
I'm gonna let you in.
Now, as we saw with the way that Mase called Diddy out in 2020, it was obvious he did not want to be a bad boy anymore, even back in 2004. That's why he was so closely affiliated with 50 Cent at the time. Even back then, he did an interview where he said, "Diddy pretty much knows I don't want to be there. It's nothing personal, I just don't want to be there. At this point, it seems like I'm going to be on G-Unit." But this is where things get dark, alright? Diddy publicly states that him and Mase had discussed a contract buyout from a couple months before this. As for if it was 50 that was going to buy Mase out of his contract, Diddy had said, 50's definitely got enough money to set everything right. And notice he said this with a smile. But Diddy also says that at the time 50 hadn't even called him about signing Mase. But if that's what was going to go down, then Diddy said 50 has his number. But this was obviously some BS. A major component in 50 Cent and Diddy falling out initially was actually this situation. 50 Cent starts helping Mase get back into the game, get inspired again. He brings him on tour. Diddy at this point has no major artists on his roster besides Mase. They all left. That's the one last piece to his legacy. So he's not going to let Mase go without a fight. Jimmy Iovine, who's a higher up at Interscope, obviously the label that G-Unit was under, he gives 50 and Diddy a great deal. He says, look, forget about the profits that I receive on this album. You guys just get it done. Diddy seems to be on board until the last minute, where he tells 50 that Mase actually owes him $2 million and that if 50 Cent wants Mase as an artist, he's going to need that $2 million. Meanwhile, at the same time, Mase is saying that Diddy owes him money, not the other way around. So it's an entire mess that essentially got nixed by Diddy. And 50 also felt like this kind of sabotaged his relationship with Jimmy Iovine at the same time. Since, again, Jimmy was on board with this whole thing and gave Diddy and 50 a great deal.
Sean P. Diddy Combs, you had a feud with him, but you made up, right?
Yeah, me and Puff, issues over the Mase project. When Mase first came to me, he didn't actually have the material that I was excited about, but I let him come with me on a tour. So he was traveling with us, and then he started writing. He got inspired by the things that were going on around him, and he created some material that I was excited about. And when we came back with me and Puff to try and make the deal, he was being unreasonable. Wow. I think he felt like Mase was like the last piece to his legacy, considering Biggie's not there and the Locks was gone, and it got drawn out, like he wasn't responding to me. I got a little frustrated, because I actually had Jimmy had said to me that he would forget about his profits on the project to allow me and Puffy to split it. In Puff's situation, like, we good now, like, because we actually got on the telephone together.
Now you'll see here throughout basically the rest of this video, it's really a one-sided rivalry between 50 Cent and Diddy. Diddy doesn't really say much, likely because he's the one with the skeletons in his closet, and 50 Cent kind of flip-flops between being friends with the guy to then crapping on him. So obviously with Diddy pulling the plug on this Mase deal, we're now in another crapping on him stage. And 50 ends up dropping his next bomb in September of 2006 on the song Hip Hop. These are the most ruthless Diddy jabs so far in this timeline. And there's nothing to break down in these lyrics. There's no subliminals. I'm just going to read them to you flat out. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He ends his verse off rapping, "Who shot Biggie Smalls? We don't get him. They're going to kill us all. Man, Puffy know who hit that guy. That guy's soft. He scared them boys from the west side'll break him off. Dump on his butt, so he run to Harlem, shake him off." Then on the outro, 50 says, "I guess this means I won't be invited to the white parties in the Hamptons. I don't give a F. I don't want to hang out with your punk butt. No way. Get me mother effing rolling around with this guy Mase. Now you want to play games? You don't want to make the deal? Man, I'll F your stuff up." Now, the only subliminal, if you want to call it that here, that we do need a reference, because there was another reference to it in Window Shopper. Remember how he said, "Freak offs, the girls freak off while I'm on my flight from New York"? Now he's talking about he won't be invited to the white parties in the Hamptons, but he doesn't want to hang out with them anyways. Who do you think 50 Cent is talking about here, throwing white parties in the Hamptons? But it seems like you probably heard in the clip beforehand where 50 says, by 2007, him and Diddy did get on the phone and patch things up about the Mase situation. It seems like we're entering the next phase of them being friends. Maybe. Because that year, the Forbes list would come out, and it would actually be 50 Cent who beat Diddy for highest earning rapper. It was Jay-Z, then 50, then Diddy. So the three teamed up for a remix of 50 Cent's song I Get Money to celebrate the Forbes list. Now the thing is, 50 Cent ghost wrote Diddy's verse for him. And while on the surface it seems like they were all buddy-buddy at this point, when you hear the lyrics to this song, knowing that 50 actually wrote it for Diddy, you gotta be asking yourself, did he just have this guy admit to doing all these crimes? Now keep in mind, back in 2006, there was a South Park episode where Satan was having a knockoff version of a My Sweet 16 birthday party. That was basically a show back in the day where bratty 16-year-olds would have these massive Sweet 16s, but they were so bratty, nothing was ever good enough for them at these parties. So they kind of flipped that. In this case, Satan is the bratty 16-year-old, and the South Park writers are aware at the time that Diddy is throwing these massive extravagant parties. And the irony is that Satan is trying to outdo anything Diddy has ever done at a party. Keep in mind, this is before any allegation. The South Park creators in 2006 are saying that Diddy's parties are so insane that even Satan can't keep up with them. And the whole catchphrase of the episode is Satan saying, "Did Diddy do it?" And then the people organizing the party would be like, "Diddy did it." That's a goated episode of a goated show, but long tangent just to say that 50 Cent kind of flips that whole Diddy do it thing in this I Get Money verse that he wrote for Diddy, where he gets Diddy to rap. Diddy did it. Cars, jewelry, and big homes, yeah, Diddy did it. Shootouts, coastal beefs, yeah, Diddy did it. But my lawyer's so good that Diddy got acquitted. What coastal beefs do you know happened that Diddy might have been in the middle of? What shootouts happened that Diddy got acquitted for? That his artist Shine went to jail for almost a decade. Now, if you guys know about the poetic justice theory, this is like that on steroids. But this could have just been 50 Cent trolling around, because later that year, all of them would end up with each other on stage for the first time, I think, in history. Jay-Z, 50 Cent, Diddy, T.I., and Kanye West. And the interaction was strange, to say the least. 50 Cent's running around the stage, throwing money in the air, kind of trolling all these guys. Jay-Z doesn't look too happy about it. Diddy spanks him on the butt. Yeah, this whole interaction was kind of weird. And Diddy and 50 would have another strange encounter the next year in 2008, when 50 would crash an interview that Diddy was doing in order to plug his new reality show. And you can't really tell if these guys hate each other, or they're just joking with each other, or if it's a mix of both. There's definitely tension. Not sexual tension, but tension.
Everybody's horizons. Yeah, definitely. I was looking for you. I tell you, get your hand out my pocket, man. Get your hand out my pocket. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing on the channel. I see what you're doing, man. Yeah, you gonna make me. Okay, I'm telling y'all right now. When I want to work for Diddy, I'm gonna physically put my hands on somebody for the ratings, because he's not gonna outdo me.
Now, this would seemingly be the last time that 50 and Diddy almost slightly got along. See, in the next year of 2009, 50 Cent had a new op in Rick Ross. Rick Ross was very close to Diddy. And any Rick Ross affiliate caught strays during this beef. 50 was showing up to where DJ Khaled's mom worked. He was dissing Lil Wayne on record. Anyone could get it. But Diddy was in an interesting position because 50 Cent was close friends with Floyd Mayweather at the time. So he actually brought Rick Ross's son to Floyd Mayweather's house. And Diddy was there while this was all going down. By coincidence. You can tell as the camera glances to Diddy, he's visibly uncomfortable considering, again, Rick Ross is his close friend. Now, with Diddy and Rick Ross getting closer and closer, with 50 Cent and Rick Ross's beef escalating to higher levels, 50 would obviously eventually look at Diddy as a casualty of war, and he would start getting more obscene with the shots that he would take at the Freaky Frog in 2010. First, he would say in an interview that Diddy's music sucks, and that he uses it as a promotional tool to either highlight a new product that he has, or a new artist, or to just keep his name relevant. It's not about the love of the art.
His music sucks. Don't be blunt, 50. Tell us what's on your mind. No, it's bad. It's bad. He's not an artist anyway, so that's true. It doesn't really matter. Like if you think about it, is he a rapper? No. Because you say you don't write rhymes, you write text.
Now, like I told you guys before, in terms of direct shots, it would be pretty one-sided. It would only really be 50 taking direct shots at Diddy. But Diddy would return the shots in a really disturbing, dark, subliminal way. See, remember the guy who shot 50 Cent 9 times? Allegedly. The guy that 50 Cent would call out by name in his song Ghetto Koran way back in 1999. Kenneth Supreme McGriff, the leader of the Supreme Teen Gang in New York. Well, in 2010, Diddy would start a supergroup with DJ Khaled, Rick Ross, and Busta Rhymes, and he would call it the Supreme Team.
It's a Supreme Team. Now, y'all know we've been kicking the Supreme Team shit. First of all, you're going to understand, we not in the crib. This is the boss's bus.
After this, all bets were off, and the back and forths would only get worse. Again, they stayed majority one-sided, with 50 Cent doing most of the crap talking, but it only escalated from here. Now remember, way back like 30 minutes ago in this video, we were reflecting on how Diddy really launched his own career through the loss of Biggie Smalls. We looked at alleged quotes from Biggie's mom's memoir where she discusses how Diddy loved Biggie after death, how people were potentially using Biggie. Well, in 2011, Jay Electronica puts out a song called The Ghost of Christopher Wallace, and it features Diddy. Christopher Wallace, if you guys didn't know somehow, that's Biggie Smalls' government name. And 50 Cent would trash this move on Twitter, highlighting how Diddy uses Biggie's name for his own financial gain, saying, "Enough is enough. Biggie's name should never have become Diddy's black card. Just check his latest video, The Ghost of Christopher Wallace. Let Diddy know to let B.I.G. rest in peace. When was the last time Diddy really was bigging up his brother, not bigging up his bank?" Now, this is where things get crazy, guys, all right? 50 Cent does an interview where he's saying, you know, this beef took a turn for the worse when Diddy named his group with Rick Ross and DJ Khaled the Supreme Team. But he also says something that shows 50 Cent knew about a lot of the revenge corn, the manipulation of Cassie, the explicit content that he would take of Cassie and use as leverage to make sure she stayed silent. 50 Cent was seeing this go down way back in 2010. 14 years before Cassie ever filed a lawsuit. He says in the interview that he had access to explicit pictures of Cassie that the world had not seen. They were sent to his website anonymously, because again, back then, I mean, 50 Cent was exposing all kinds of things, right? He posted Rick Ross's baby mama's S-tape online. He got sued for that. He posted video footage of DJ Khaled's mom sleeping at her job. So he's getting explicit images of Cassie with Diddy. And 50 says that he actually sent them back to Diddy. And when he did, the reaction that Diddy had made 50 Cent think, again, 14 years ago, that it wasn't Cassie who wanted these explicit images to be taken, but instead, it was actually Diddy. Diddy would ask 50 where he got the images from. He would say, "Thank you for sending these to me." But there was no real outrage. I mean, you guys can listen to it for yourself. And of course, he had to throw in a couple jokes about Diddy potentially being gay. And again, this is all back in 2010, right? Just crazy to think that 50 Cent had access to this info and was speaking this openly about things that would unravel only 15 years later about Diddy, way back in 2010.
He gonna make sure he getting all the attention.
Yep, they get the dudes hollering at them. Everything is that the pretty bitch with the ugly girls.
He want to make sure that.
So
I mean, if he'll tell you himself what happened in Miami, stay in Miami. At the end of the day, whoever's around him, because he'll suck the life out of him like everybody else that he's been around. They sent me the girl pictures, like pictures of his girl, like penetration pictures and all that. And I called the nigga and said, "Yo, you with this girl? Like, you really, like, you like her like that? And he was like, yeah, that's my girl. I'm like, all right, I'm going to send you something. You look at it, you call me back. I sent him the photos, the pictures and everything, and the nigga called back and was like, yo, thanks, man. Yo, I really appreciate that. Yo, where you get these shits from? But, you know, I really kind of felt like those photographs was not happening because of Cassie. I felt like they was happening because of Puffy.
Right. Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? Because when a girl moves away from a man and she upgrades, niggas be insecure. You know what I'm saying?
Now, the beef would be on pause for 2011, but a whole other component of this beef would be bubbling in that year. See, that is the year that 50 Cent started dating Daphne Joy. They were expecting their first child together. Remember that name, it'll play an important role in the story very shortly. 2012 comes around, 50 Cent posts a picture of Diddy and Rick Ross almost kissing each other. Obviously, this is implying again that Diddy's homosexual, and again, this is before he even told the world that Diddy asked to take him shopping. Now, throughout the last few years, Diddy is making an absolute killing being the spokesman for Ciroc. Ciroc is a vodka, but really I don't even know if it is because it's made out of grapes, not potatoes like a conventional vodka. But anyways, that doesn't really matter. What matters is 50 is seeing how much money Puffy is making and he wants a sip of the action, no pun intended. So in 2014, 50 would partner with the vodka company Effin and become a spokesperson for them. And one of the first marketing campaigns that 50 did for Effin Vodka was actually a diss towards Diddy, because now they're not beefing over records, they're beefing over who has the best alcohol. He posts this picture to Effin Vodka's Facebook page saying, damn, 50's right, I'm effing up right now. And obviously, as you can see, it is Diddy attempting to grab this nice lady over here. Now, a new slogan that 50 would coin is the term puffy juice, and this is obviously in relation to Ciroc, but nowadays would be more suitable to describe baby oil. And in this ad for Effin Vodka, you see a picture of Diddy provocatively posing by a fireplace with 50 Cent captioning it, nothing like effing by the fire. New drink, no more puffy juice. Now, Diddy would finally clap back with some trolls of his own. On 50 Cent's birthday, he posted a picture of the two together from 2004, with the caption reading, "Happy birthday, 50 Cent. May God bless you with many more, beloved, and I send you a lifetime supply of the superior, ultra-premium Ciroc. Celebrate responsibly. But all jokes aside, birthdays are sacred. Happy birthday, King. Love always, Puffy." 50 Cent would return the trolling favor by sending Diddy a bottle of Effin Vodka to his appearance at the Breakfast Club. And you could see someone from Diddy's team try to sneak behind him and not get caught by the camera while he takes the Effin bottle off the shelf behind Diddy.
Not enough people taking any chances. Everything is...
What the hell are you doing, man?
What's going on?
There's all these grown men crawling behind other grown men.
Just to give some backstory.
What is going on, yo?
No. 50 Cent sent a case of effing up here for Diddy. And he signed it with a card.
Give him a card.
And now we have revolt people crawling on the ground.
Curtis Jackson.
Yeah.
Now, be clear, Diddy did send 50 a whole lifetime supply of Ciroc for his birthday as well. So you guys have a...
Now, this vodka war would span back and forth for years. French Montana would get involved. 50 would say that Puffy touched French's butt. But things would get more serious when, like I mentioned before, it would be reported that Diddy allegedly offered Keefy D $1 million if he could get rid of Tupac and Suge. And of course, once this news was dropped, 50 Cent was the first to post it. The caption read, "So Puffy's with it, huh? See, you gotta watch these punks. Hashtag no puffy juice. He killed your favorite rapper." In an interview later that year, 50 would be asked about his vodka rivalry between Diddy, and he would emphasize again that Diddy's known for taking. He's known for standing next to what's hot and using it to fuel his own brand.
He's a guy who stands next to the guy. He's not the guy. I am the guy. Right? He's next to Biggie. He's next to Greg Mack. He's next to Mix. He's next to the Locks. Next to Kim. Whenever you've seen him by himself, I was excited.
50 would continue trolling about Diddy potentially having something to do with the unaliving of Biggie, posting stuff like, "B.I.G. dead after dancing with the devil. Hashtag no puffy juice." You would think that 50's promo against puffy juice would come to an end in July 2017 when he sold his stake reportedly in Effin Vodka for $60 million. However, 50 would announce he's still on the team, he just sold a percentage of his ownership. And this is when he would get on Drink Champs to promote Effin' Vodka and to promote Puffy's poofiness, let's just call it that. This is when he would finally tell the world about the famous time where Diddy asked 50 Cent if he could take him shopping.
Ask me, could you take me shopping? And it f***ed me up because I'm looking like, what the f*** just like, I want to take you shopping. I got a bankroll out this motherfucker. I want to take you shopping. Why? Because when you walk around looking so motherfucking good, I'm going to feel like, God damn it, that motherfucker with me. That's all I want to do. But when they tell me you want to take me shopping, what the f*** is the matter with this?
50 would also criticize the way that Diddy takes pictures with other males, again implying that he might be gay.
You put weird pictures and like that out there, sitting out there for no reason. You don't see accident pictures with me like kissing it. Like that doesn't happen by accident. You know what I'm saying? Like.
Now, the campaign against Diddy's sexuality would only heighten from here. The next year, 50 Cent would post a picture of himself in the hospital with the caption saying, "Sorry, I can no longer help you guys. Soon you will all be gay and happy. You are now all left under the leadership of Puffy Daddy. Report to the nearest rainbow." Now, Charlemagne would call 50 Cent out for accusing Diddy of being gay, and 50 would say that he only called him gay because of the flamboyant activity Diddy displayed when he went on the Drink Champs with Fabulous and Jadakiss.
The Drink Champs. Yeah. And he go, when he do it, he says things, he doesn't even know what he's saying is like fruity. You know what I'm saying? Like, he says something fabulous and he goes, yo, but me and you, we ain't party. Like, we need to party. What is he talking about? What is he talking about? That's the kind of stuff. When people say that to me, I get a little uncomfortable.
Later that year, Diddy would also make his way onto the Breakfast Club, where he's finally asked if he really offered to take 50 shopping. And beyond that, this is the first time where Diddy really dives into detail about why he thinks 50 is constantly going at him, where they actually stand, if they do truly hate each other, or if this is all a troll. And to me, the most disturbing part is when Diddy tries to play it off like 50 Cent really does love him and not hate him, and he continuously says, he loves me, and he takes his glasses off and just stares across the room at DJ Envy, and his eyes are like just super dark. I don't know, something is creepy about the way that he's speaking about this.
I asked 50 about that. He said you did the same thing to him. You asked him to take him shopping.
Yeah, I thought he needed some clothes. What? I'm a nice guy. You can't see that he loves me. But see, you really, hold on, you really think that's hate? When you really break it down, you've been out here a long time. You know he loves me. I don't think he like it. You know he loves me. I don't think he like it. Okay, he loves me. Sometimes people that feel like they don't like you and they act like that, they really love you. I mean, it's something about me that has them on me all the time, and I'm not going nowhere.
Now, 50 might have had the more successful vodka partnership, may have made more money on the Forbes list. He may have cracked a lot more jokes at Diddy's expense than Diddy ever did to 50, but for a short period of time, it seemed like Diddy may have had the last laugh, because in 2021, it was announced that Diddy had started dating the mother of one of 50's children, Daphne Joy. 50 would post a picture of the two of them together, saying, "Nah, me and Puffy fight over business, but if he likes the girl, he likes the girl. I don't give a crap." He might have given a crap though, because he continued the trolling. He posted a picture with his son, the same son he had with Daphne Joy, and said, "Oh, that's your mommy over there with Puffy, LOL. Remember when I told you the other day, these bees are crazy." Daphne would actually reply in the comments saying, "Please stop doing this to me. I never bother you, and I'm an outstanding mother to our son. Can we please just focus on that? Please?" Daphne would also post a picture celebrating Diddy's birthday in 2022, confirming that the two were dating. And 50 Cent would ultimately be asked what he thought about this in an interview, and he said he hadn't kissed Daphne in 10 years, so somebody had to do it. Now, 50 Cent would warn us once again a considerable amount of time before everything would fall apart for Diddy, telling the crowd at one of his shows that Diddy did it to Tupac, and that he won't go to any Diddy parties.
That's why I don't be going to the Puffy parties. Hug you from the front and the back at the same time. Oh, wait, maybe I said that about Puffy because he got Tupac killed.
Now, the Diddy parties would come crumbling down just a few months later when Cassie dropped her bombshell of a lawsuit in November of 2023. She would corroborate exactly what 50 Cent said in Window Shopper almost 20 years beforehand, in that Diddy would arrange these massive S parties that he would call freak-offs. And while I'm not going to dive too deep into detail into the slew of different lawsuits that Diddy received from former collaborators, all of the accusations of S assault that were mentioned in court, in the 50 documentary, all across the tabloids for the last year and a half, it's redundant. You guys can do your research on that. I want to keep this focused on the connection between 50 and Diddy, because we know after Cassie dropped that lawsuit, 50 Cent would not live a waking day without making it a more miserable one in some way or another for Diddy. After all these years of them being rivals in business, 50 Cent was offering to buy Revolt from Diddy after he was forced to step down from chairman of the board amidst all the controversy. And it was in December of 2023, about a month after Cassie dropped that lawsuit, that 50 Cent would announce that he was developing a documentary on Diddy, similar to Surviving R. Kelly, even slapping R. Kelly's face onto Diddy's face and posting it onto Twitter. I could probably show you guys 100 posts of 50 trashing Diddy over the following months, because there was tons of ammo to work with, right? Diddy was getting a different lawsuit filed against him damn near every day after Cassie opened the floodgates, and one of the most interesting ones that got 50 Cent into a little bit of a pickle came from Lil Rod. Now, again, I'm not going to dive into every accusation Lil Rod made in his lawsuit. You guys can check out 50's documentary for that. It gets crazy. He said he woke up sometimes after studio sessions with Diddy and he was sore. He doesn't know from what, but he was sore. It's all alleged. But in his lawsuit, it also states, or he accuses, Daphne Joy, again, the mother of 50 Cent's son, of being paid a monthly fee from Diddy specifically to participate in freak-offs. Of course, 50 wasted no time trolling his baby mama on Instagram, posting a caption saying, "I didn't know you were an S worker, you little S worker, LOL, this stuff is a movie." But what gets even crazier is that 50 Cent wasn't just trolling. He went to family court and tried to seek sole custody of his and Daphne Joy's son, who was 11 years old, after she was named an S worker in the lawsuit filed against Diddy. Now, Daphne would come with some accusations of her own, but she wasn't pointing the finger at Diddy, instead at 50. She accused 50 of being an absent father and even physically abusing her. Now, 50 would send Daphne a lawyer's letter demanding that she retract her statement of the R word. And then 50 claims that she responded with her lawyers demanding that 50 give Daphne millions of dollars and stop attempting to seek sole custody of their shared son in return for taking down the post where she accuses 50 of the R word. Because of this, 50 Cent would actually go on to sue Daphne Joy for defamation, his own baby mama. $1 million in damages is what he was seeking for that one Instagram post she put up where she accused him of physical abuse and the R word. Around this same time, Netflix picks up 50 Cent's Diddy documentary. Again, 2 years ago. This was 2 years in the making, but really, if you truly think about it, and you look at everything we just reviewed in this timeline, it was more like 20. Once the Diddy trial would commence, there was one anonymous victim who testified against Diddy and went under the alias Jane Doe. If you're wondering why 50 Cent spent 2 years compiling as much heinous information as he could against Diddy and making it his mission to completely slaughter this man's reputation, you might find your answer in this Jane Doe victim's testimony during the trial. She was a victim of S trafficking who had been in a relationship with Diddy from 2021 to 2024. After allegedly participating in multiple freak-offs and hotel nights, Jane Doe began to question why Diddy wanted her to do these things so badly. Similar to Cassie, she alleges that Diddy forced her to have S with other men. On the stand, she accused Diddy of being a CUCK, saying that she started to believe Diddy was bisexual after he kept making her have sex with other men while he watched, essentially because Diddy was too afraid to do the act himself. She also said her and Diddy got into a physical altercation just a couple weeks after the Cassie hotel video went public. She allegedly thought that Diddy was seeing another woman when he was on a family trip, and this led her to allegedly call him a PDF while pushing him, and allegedly Diddy fought back very aggressively. Now, many people immediately thought that this Jane Doe victim was actually Daphne Joy for several reasons. Number one, of course, the timelines add up. Diddy and Daphne Joy were dating from 2021 to 2024. Meanwhile, this victim was dating Diddy in the same period. Number two, like we looked at before, Lil Rod actually named Daphne Joy as being one of the women that Diddy was paying for the freak-offs, and this was in around 2022. Also aligning with the timeline, Jane Doe testified to be a single mother whose birthday was in February. Daphne Joy's birthday is in February, and she was also a single mother. Jane Doe also mentioned that her child's father had a contentious relationship with Diddy, and we all know about 50 Cent's rivalry with Diddy at this point. People thought maybe this Jane Doe could also be Young Miami, but Young Miami, I believe, actually wrote a letter to the judge in defense of Diddy, so she wouldn't be up here saying all this stuff if that was the case. Also, Young Miami has 2 children. Meanwhile, the Jane Doe mentions only having 1 son, which again, Daphne Joy has 1 son, and it's of course with 50 Cent. Now, speaking of their son, on the day that Jane Doe was testifying, 50 Cent had posted the following on his Instagram. It's a picture of him and his son with the caption, "What the F?" And whether or not Jane Doe is 50 Cent's baby mama, Daphne Joy, it's safe to say regardless, 50 Cent views Diddy as enemy number 1. And with Diddy's multi-decade history of taking from other artists within the industry, the irony lies in the fact that after a multi-decade rivalry with 50 Cent, 50 deployed the exact same tactic by taking every aspect of Diddy's character, putting it under the filthiest magnifying glass, displaying it for the world, and powering himself up in the process. Whether you believe everything in that documentary or not, one thing is for sure. This was a 20-year plot for revenge in the making. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.